Hi, welcome to Videos from the Ville. I'm Dr. Charles Greenawalt, and this is Canadian Government and Politics. For this particular session, we're going to take a look at the executive branch of the Canadian government. First of all, we have to understand the executive branch in Canada is divided into two types of executives. First, we have the formal executive, and the formal executive consists of the Queen, Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom and Great Britain, is also the Queen of Canada. And when the Queen is not in residence in Canada, she is represented by an individual called the Governor General. And the Governor General serves in her place in Canada when she cannot be there. Secondly, there is a political executive, and the political executive consists of the Prime Minister, his or her cabinet, and the bureaucracy within the federal government. Of course, currently the Prime Minister of Canada is Justin Trudeau. Of course, Justin Trudeau is the son of the famous Canadian Prime Minister from the 60s and 70s into the 80s, Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Justin Trudeau may have single-handedly saved the Liberal Party from extinction in Canada some years ago, and he did it on his father's reputation. Well, we'll get to examine that and talk about that when we get to political parties further down the line. But what are the responsibilities of the executive branch? Well, first there is collective responsibility. Collective responsibility serves as the group basis for parliamentary government. There is a team concept that you have the Prime Minister is the leader of the majority coalition in the Parliament. You find the Prime Minister works with his or her cabinet, the individuals that are chosen from the governing coalition that are chosen to head up the various ministries of government and the government itself. So the collective responsibility is that, of course, the Prime Minister, the majority, the government is chosen by the majority of the people, and the Prime Minister is the leader of the majority, and the Prime Minister and the government are directly responsible to one another and to the people of the country. Then you have ministerial responsibility, and this is simply the fact that we're emphasizing the individual responsibility of every cabinet member to the Parliament as a whole. Again, I urge you, while we go through this presentation, to take your PowerPoints. You can run them off individually, as I have here, or you can certainly use them from your tablet or from your laptop. Well, we said that the formal executive in Canada consists of the Queen, and the Queen is Queen Elizabeth II. Of course, she is sovereign when she is in Canada. You find that she was coronated in 1953 and was one of the longest-serving monarchs in the world today. The Governor General of Canada is David Lloyd Johnston, and you find that the Governor General is initially selected by the King or the Queen, and this was how Governor General was handled when the country began. But since 1926, the King and Queen no longer directly select the Governor General. Since 1926, the Canadian government has recognized and recommended. They've recommended a person to the sovereign to be appointed as Governor General. And since 1952, only Canadians have been appointed to the position of Governor General. You find that a Governor General may be removed at the advice of the Prime Minister to the Crown, and the term limit for a Governor General is 5 years. Lastly, not only is the Governor General term limited to 5 years, the Governor General lives in a residence called Rideau House, R-I-D-E-A-U. R-I-D-E-A-U. Rideau House is named for the Rideau River and the Rideau Canal. Of course, Ottawa is located on the Ottawa River, but coming south from the Ottawa River, and it goes from Ottawa all the way to Kingston, is the Rideau River and the Rideau Canal. The Rideau Canal was built after the War of 1812 to shelter British and Canadian shipping and commerce from attacks from America and from the Americans. So Rideau House is a very nice house and stands in the center of Ottawa, the national capital. Well, as part of the formal executive in Canada, we also have something called lieutenant governors. Lieutenant governors are the equivalent of governor generals at the provincial level. Lieutenant governors are appointed by the governor general, and they are responsible to the governor general. The prime minister recommends to the governor general essentially who is to be appointed to these lieutenant gubernatorial positions in all the provinces. What happens, of course, the prime minister usually consults with the provincial political executives before the appointments are made. The term of lieutenant governor for each and every province is 5 years as well. And you find that lieutenant governors are appointed more on the basis of patronage and politics than is true for the governor general. Governor General is normally someone who's very well known, very accomplished, very well respected. Well, Canada has another interesting feature of the executive branch. They have something called the Administrator of Canada. The Administrator of Canada, if we find for some reason the formal executives are unable to perform their jobs, the 1867 Constitution Act provides for their replacement. And we find that the Governor General can be replaced by a person appointed as the Administrator of Canada. The Administrator of Canada then will serve as the Governor General until the former Governor General can resume his or her post. You find that typically the Administrator of Canada would be the Chief Justice of the Canadian Supreme Court. And this same provision exists at the provincial level to have an administrator of Nova Scotia, an administrator of Newfoundland, an administrator of Saskatchewan, an administrator of Alberta. The same thing applies. Well, then we also have a feature called the Privy Council. The Privy Council. The Privy Council is comprised of the entire cabinet, the working part of the entire cabinet, and all other prior cabinet members. So the Privy Council of Canada would consist of the current cabinet that Justin Trudeau has for his Liberal government in Ottawa. But then it would consist of bringing in all the other people who have ever served in the cabinet of a Canadian government. You are a member for life once you are appointed, but you are appointed if in fact you have served in any cabinet. And we have a situation where the full Privy Council will meet very rarely. Essentially, the full Privy Council meets only when the Queen comes to Ottawa or on very special occasions. And we have a picture on your PowerPoints of the Privy Council chamber that was used between 1878 and 1882 in the Parliament building in Ottawa. You find that you can just imagine what usefulness a Privy Council in the United States would have. I have been a big believer for years and years in trying to tap into the knowledge and the expertise, the experience of people who have served in government earlier, who've seen governments come and governments go, who've learned from history and learned from experience. Wouldn't this be a wonderful way to putting them to work and have a Privy Council in the United States that would meet every so often, or at least during times of crisis, to help give the president advice on what would be good and what might be bad public policy. Well, the political executive of Canada plays a dominant role in policy making and government. You find that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet are not even mentioned in the 1867 Constitution Act. They are named in other Canadian statutes, but the role of the Prime Minister, him or herself, depends on who is holding the office and how do they use the tools that are available for them while they hold the office. What are the bases? The bases of power for the Prime Minister are essentially fourfold. The bases of power are, number one, the basis of the public support. The Prime Minister is the visible symbol of political leadership. And as the visible symbol of political leadership, the Prime Minister can rally public support. So the first basis of any power that the Prime Minister might have would be in the public. The second is the formal executive basis of power. So the Prime Minister has power as a formal executive, as the link between the two executives, the political executive and the formal executive. Thirdly, the Prime Minister has one of the bases of power is their party. You find that the Prime Minister is the leader of his or her political party. And lastly, the final base of the Prime Minister's power, is the Cabinet of Canada, and how they are all beholding to the Prime Minister for appointment. Well, the Cabinet, it's good to talk about the Cabinet a little further and take a look at it, because the Prime Minister is not free to just willy-nilly select whoever he or she would like in the Cabinet. The Prime Minister is circumscribed in the appointments that they can make. They're circumscribed by political tradition. You find that some of the appointments have to be ideological. Some of the appointments have to be from prominent party figures. You find that some of the appointments to the Cabinet have to be done on the basis of representation. And the basis of representation, every Prime Minister will have to appoint some individuals from certain regions or parts of Canada. So you have a provincial representation or regional representation. This was all started by the first Prime Minister himself, John Macdonald, from Kingston, Ontario. You find that every province gets at least one cabinet seat, and the cabinet member doesn't even have to be a member of the House of Commons. The cabinet member can be a senator. Cabinet positions from the most populous provinces of Ontario and Quebec are spread out, and then we have all governments wanting to give representation within different regions of Quebec, within different regions of Ontario, since they are the two largest and most important of the provinces of Canada. We find what else is considered in picking your cabinet. Well, not surprisingly, identity politics has reared its head in Canada as well as in the United States. We're going to look at merits not in and of itself does not suffice. We have to look at race. We have to look at age. We have to look at gender. We have to look at religion. All these things are taken into account as well as one prime minister chooses a cabinet and attempts to lead the country forward. Now, there are certain portfolios, certain seats within the cabinet, certain seats within the cabinet that are associated with specific provinces or specific regions. For example, the cabinet member that serves as head of public works, that cabinet member will always come from the province of the current prime minister. So you'll have the head of public works will always be a member of the prime minister's party from his or her province. Agriculture, that cabinet seat will always be held by someone from the western provinces. The fisheries seat will always be held from someone from British Columbia. And then finance, the finance cabinet member, a person that serves in that capacity, will always be from Ontario, will always be an English Canadian. Now, the Prime Minister, interestingly enough, may give him or herself one portfolio. So if the Prime Minister wants to appoint him or herself as the head of the Minister of Trade or the Minister of Education, whatever, they're allowed to do so. Not very well advised to do so because you need more help. You need more help than you will get, and it's good to bring more people in to help you govern this behemoth of a country. You also find that the Prime Minister can appoint something called cabinet members without portfolio. Cabinet members without portfolio are potential ministers, they're party organizers, and they have patronage duties within their provinces. So the Prime Minister may appoint cabinet members that don't have a portfolio to look after. They don't have to oversee a department, but they're in the cabinet. But what the government will use them for then will be a minister in waiting as an organizer within the party to organize certain events, or have patronage duties. In other words, find good employees for the government from top to bottom. So this is a quick whirlwind tour of the executive branch. I want you to hang on, and we'll be right back with the next lesson from Canadian government and politics.